Welcome back to the program. I'm Zev Brenner, well-known Jewish blogger. Jacob Kornbluh joins us once again, and good to have you back. A good adventure to you and your family.
I got to you, Zev, and to all the listeners.
So I heard you're making waves today. You had some stories online that making some headlines.
Well, listen, you got to try every week to, be in the spotlight, but with all seriousness, this is just another piece of honest journalism. I mean, I was walking around on election day from poll site to poll site, while in Borough Park there was like an extremely low turnout. Williamsburg, you well know since you have covered the fight for the past decade or more, the two Satmars are in a power struggle, and the two factions were basically trying to stretch their muscles in proving that they are the vote getters. They are the ones that bring out the vote respectfully for the mayoral candidate. So there was spinning going on prior to the elections, and even worse after the elections. Who brought out the votes? Who won Williamsburg? Who won overall the Jewish vote? So it was an interesting aspect to cover, since the media was more focused on the Bill de Blasio win in the Democratic primary.
But even if you would have gotten, let's say, 10 people, I don't know how many numbers are we talking about that were there. Was it a substantial amount, or was it a handful? Because it's only a handful. I don't even understand the logic. We have to have hundreds, if not thousands, of additional people voting in order to make a difference.
Speaking to the people over there, it sounded like it's more than a handful. However, you know that in the heavy populated Hasidic areas, they have poll workers within the polling places. So it's easier to cover up if they bring in a mass of people spread between the hours of the afternoon when more people turn up to vote. So it's easy to cover up. I got like tips from Satmar, from both, from the Zalis and Aronian, they're proving me that some voters got cards with some other names, and it had all the information, what they should do, where they should vote. So it wasn't just a handful, and it's not the first, hopefully it is the last time of them doing this tactic. Yes, maybe it was 100, maybe it was only 60 or 70. It didn't sway the vote this time because of the exposure, because of social media. I mean, right after I tweeted what I was sharing, the evidence from a few underage teenagers, they even told me, like, proudly that it's been out of money and they anyway have nothing what to do, so they do this either for money, either for fun. But while I was tweeting their evidence, reporters from Gothamist, from Haaretz, and different local reporters came to the scene or called up to see what's happening. So that created alone a crisis, a management crisis, which of course propelled the leaders of both sides to stop with these tactics.
Now, how does it work? If somebody gets a list of people they know for sure not going to vote, and to go in and vote in their stead, doesn't anybody ever ask for ID? I know when I went to it, nobody asked for ID, but doesn't anybody ask anywhere for ID before they let you sign in?
We don't have an ID, a voter ID system, so it's easier to play on the system. And frankly, there were some voters that turned up and saw that they voted already. But, in our community, everything gets pushed under the table, under the carpet. But, they saw, once the coordinator in that poll site, I think it was PS 71, once she made a whole stink about it, the police, the NYPD, turned up, and they were standing outside the polling site, identifying whom they suspected were under 18, and either they showed an ID or they looked older, they were not stopped until they entered the voting booth.
Now, there, in the tablet publication online where they quote about it, and they quote a spokesman for the Aronian group, and this is what they claim. They say, quote, "The accusations are false, baseless, and motivated by cultural insensitivity and ill will," said Michael Tobin. "Nothing like what's been alleged actually happened. Every valid vote is being counted, and the integrity of the Brooklyn vote in every community is beyond reproach."
Again, I'm not disputing any charges, and I'm not basically claiming that I have credible evidence that would be based on some alleged voter fraud. However, it wasn't based on I wasn't dreaming. I was there at the scene. I was talking to people. I was talking to people in Yiddish. I was talking to people as identified as a reporter. Even with some of the managers of these two factions, I spoke with the local coordinators, and they all told me this is an old tactic that we use every election, and it's not something that it's not beyond the leadership. It's something local that happens, and yes, maybe it's a bogus claim, maybe, but you always see that in the heavily populated Williamsburg areas, the votes increase when you compare it to other ultra-Orthodox neighborhoods.
And how many votes overall? I didn't look at the numbers. Overall in Williamsburg, how many were
Overall
cast?
in Williamsburg, it wasn't so impressive as they claimed. I mean, during the press conference where the Zallis endorsed Bill Thompson, Rabbi Niederman claimed that they have 11,000 votes to deliver to Bill Thompson. I think the initial count was around 5,200 for Bill Thompson in all of the precincts that are heavily populated with Orthodox Jews, compared to 4,200 for the Aronian, which they claimed was for Bill de Blasio. So it wasn't like a 60-40, it was more of a, I would say, a 57-43, but taking count that the Zallis used to claim that they are 3-1 to the Aronian, and this wasn't a 3-1 race, but still, you know, if you look at in the books, if you look at the record, I think Stockner has combined the Williamsburg around, if it's the entire Williamsburg community, it's around 15,000 households. That's more than 30,000 votes. So the 9,000 plus votes that they brought out for the mayoral election, yes, it's impressive because it's a suppressed neighborhood. It's not a citywide. It's not spread citywide, but it's still only 9,000 votes.
But you have to also assume, and this is where I'm trying to understand the logic here, is it assumed that every single member who belongs to the Aronian group voted for Bill Thompson, assume that everyone who runs the Zalman Leib's group, Reb Zalman has voted for Bill de Blasio? And what about other people in the community? There are other people who live there, so not every vote can you put into the column. I'm not sure I understand the logic of how they can say what they're saying.
You're right with that assessment because it's true. You have Popper, you have Dean, you have
and
other,
you also have some non-Jews that are voting in that area, too.
Yeah, that also go out to vote. And also, you assume that 100% of your followership would follow your leader's rule. However, in this, in the new 21st century, it's basically people are more informed and more independent. So somebody that was informed to vote for Bill de Blasio, he may have casted his vote for Bill Thompson or vice versa. So it's not 100%, but at least in terms of bringing out the votes, I don't think it was an impressive count.
No, I think we, as a community, we have to do a lot more, for voter registration. That goes beyond saying, and we got to do a lot more to bring out the vote because too many of us are not voting. We need to bring out more of that vote.
And the disappointment grows even bigger because in this year's election, I can say, since I've covered the race, almost every candidate did outreach in the Jewish community. Christian Quinn, that did the minimal of selecting a Jewish liaison for the community, got like 400 votes in Borough Park. I mean, it's not much, but it still shows that the candidates basically came down. They viewed the Orthodox Jewish community as an important electorate, and it's upon us to prove them that what they are investing in our community is an investment good for them for decades. We are a growing Jewish community, and they are spending, every candidate has between $6 and $3 million to spend. I'm sure they spent most of the money. And how much do you think does it cost to spend in the Jewish community? 100,000, 150 max. And if they did that calculation, and if they invested in the Jewish community, it's upon us to prove them that the investment was the right investment.
By the way,
that we vote.
By the way, I have to tell you, analyzing a lot of the Jewish papers and Jewish media and magazines, I think the candidates in this race spent a lot less money than races I've seen in previous years.
It may be true because...
Again, I didn't do a scientific survey, but from my recollection, from what I saw, last-minute stuff, I didn't see as much as I saw in years past. So there wasn't a lot of electoral money that poured into Jewish media.
It wasn't so much money, but more attention. I mean, you had all the candidates come down to Borough Park to Midwood. We had a forum for the Republican... for the Democratic candidates. The Republican candidates spoke for the leadership, but they came down to events, and you have to understand that it's a different landscape. People are more dependent on online news, blogs, if it's social media like Twitter and Facebook. So and if you really live in the community, you know that local newsletters like Luach HaTzibah and others that come out daily and are spread out on posters or in the shul are much more effective, cost less, but much more effective in terms of informing voters or actually...
I'm not sure the papers are still strong, and people knock the traditional media, but if you analyze the Bill de Blasio campaign, what put him over the top and would change the direction was, but also the TV commercial with his son. The TV commercial with his son made the difference as far as turning the tide for him. Everybody acknowledges that. So while people talk about the social media, it's all important, but the traditional media still very powerful, still producing.
Listen, as I always say, it's a package deal, you know.
Right, you need all the elements.
It's everything. It's 1 + 1 +
You got to do all your homework. You got to put all your ducks in a row. Jacob Kornbluh, I will thank you for being with us. Look forward to having you back. A good yontif.
Take care. Good yontif.
Jack Kornbluh, well-known blogger here on the Talkline Communications Network. We're going to return after these messages.